Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. Kuntres HaTefila. Well, after Parak Base, chapter 2. Okay, this is a very good. It's interesting, and I think when you'll learn this, you'll ask yourselves, how come no one ever told me this before? And I was thinking about it. It's a good question. I don't know why no one explains to us how to learn Chassidus. What we do, we go to yeshiva seminary and we learn Chassidus. We read it, we translate it, and the teacher gives a shiur on it, and that's about it, as far as it goes. But no one ever explains to us how to truly learn Chassidus. So this is what he's going to talk about today. I don't know why it hasn't taught. I never got taught it this way. And let's see. Chapter 2. Just a quick summary from before. We're talking about the virtue of contemplation in general, and particularly in regards to the concept of his greatness and loftiness, gazing on the King's glory. That involves an essential attachment of one's mind with godliness. So ultimately, we have to attach our minds with godliness, which is this idea of meditation, and that really gets us all the good feelings and all the good things we need in order to connect to God. Page 36 on the top, chapter 2. Internalizing contemplation. Here the Rebbe discusses the manner of one's meditation. The primary factor is not studying the subject, but actually meditating upon them. When I was in yeshiva, no one ever told me about this, or if they did, they didn't explain to me in a way to actually do it. Let's see. So the above mentioned concepts have been systematically organized and elucidated for you in several published discourses and in manuscripts. So the Rebbe Rashab is saying there's already been written what I told before about how to about things to think about and stuff like that. We already talked about this. It's up to you to understand these subjects, to comprehend them clearly and thoroughly, and to reflect upon them during prayer. This being the principal purpose of their study. And the purpose of studying Chassidus in general and these specific topics that he's talking about is in order to be able to think about them and meditate about them. To understand the concept properly and in detail. So now we're going to explain further. For all prior study and knowledge serve as a prelude to achieving the main intention, which is the contemplation of these concepts during prayer, specifically in detailed form. So explaining how to meditate. So all the learning that you do, when you learn a subject to understand it, that's really just the before, a person learns the Maimon, they know it well, meaning what we typically call know well. He's saying that's not what we're talking about. That's just what you need to know in order to be able to meditate. Because when you meditate, you have to meditate on these ideas you know well, specifically in a detailed form. And he explained, what does this mean? To elaborate to oneself the godly concept which one is pondering, and to understand it fully, especially all the concepts related details. Superficial reflection does not suffice. So you have to take a maimon, not just summarize the maimon, but think about all the details of the maimon and all the little nuances of it. Even if the subject is known and perfectly clear to a person, pondering the concept only in a general manner does not constitute a contemplation at all. So even if you know the maimon well, it's not enough just to have a general thought about it. You have to detail it, and you have to really think about what that all means. Because if you don't do it in a very detailed manner, then the light does not illuminate the innerness of his brain and heart. It merely encompasses his mind without being internalized. But then it won't be internalized within you. It won't really, when your brain's working, your mind is working, so you really internalize it, these ideas, and you'll feel it. And although at the time the person may become excited intellectually over the godly theme, which he's pondering, and may likewise become exhilarated emotionally, experiencing a yearning and a longing for godliness, this experience is only illusionary. It has absolute no lasting impact. Rather, the exhilaration passes, disappearing completely and immediately, as it is written, blink your eye and it is gone, from Proverbs. Meaning, what he's saying is, even if you know the Maimon well, meaning you've learned it several times, you understand what it's saying, but if you don't think about what does it actually mean, or what it means to me, and really sit down and meditate on that and say, and being that you know all the details, you have to detail it. You can't just say, use a very general, broad idea, but you have to actually take use it and say, how does this fit into my life? How do I apply this to myself? And what examples could I find that this works exactly the way it is? Because if you don't, even if you know the Maimon well, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people that I see, they do know the Maimon well, like they've learned it a lot of times, and they feel very comfortable with, let's say, saying the Maimon in shul, but they don't really understand what the Maimon is saying. Meaning, what is it saying? Maybe in general, even, but even for themselves, what is it saying? And it just, and that's what he's saying. You have to sit there. It's not enough just to know the Maimon well. Because if you do, you might even get inspired because you know the Maimon well. But if you haven't really meditated on it, you haven't really sat down and think about the details of the Maimon and how they apply to you. And like he says, to elaborate to oneself the godly concept, to elaborate it to yourself. Meaning, it's not just, oh, yeah, I know this, and think about it in your mind, but like really talk about it as if you're bringing with someone. Because if you don't, you blink your eye and it's gone. Because even if you do get excited from what you know, then it will go. And this is sort of the lesson that we, like one of the most important things to take away from this is when we learn Chassidus, we have to think about it, not just learn it and translate it, but really bring it out and say, what does this mean? What am I meant to learn from this? How am I meant to live my life differently? And it could take, it could be first you need to learn it a few times to understand it well. But even when you just understand it well, don't stop there. Start to think about it and really say to myself, well, what can I learn from this? How can I live my life differently from this? What is the Rebbe trying to teach me here? And what's an example of my life that I could change from this? Well, see the world differently. In fact, this manner of reflection need not necessarily yield any heartfelt sensation of yearning at all. For although the mind may be excited over the godly matter, or the concept being pondered, nothing at all compels the heart to be similarly excited. And he's saying, because if you don't do it in this internalized way, this meditation of really the details and what does it mean to me, so then it won't necessarily even bring any excitement. Nothing at all compels the heart to be similarly excited. The heart may be entirely unaffected, save from being drawn somewhat after the excitement of the mind. Yeah, so we'll have some level of drawing after the mind, as we'll explain later in chapter 3, next chapter. Unless the person forces himself to sense excitement in his heart, then his heart will become excited. But this forced emotional arousal is nothing more than a vain illusion. So even if you sort of force this feeling, if you're thinking about a godly concept, and this is sort of the struggle that people have. They learn Chassidus and they think it doesn't mean anything to them, and I don't feel anything. It's like, it's nothing, Like I had a friend recently, he said to me, I enjoy much more learning Gemara. He goes, so there's nothing, and I didn't. He's like, I don't feel anything. I don't feel like I'm gaining anything. And I was like shocked. I didn't understand. What do you mean? Like, to me, learning Gemara, it's interesting and it's nice, but it's not talking my life. And whereas so this is always talking about my life. And for him, he wasn't learning it in this way. So he wasn't talking to him. So it didn't feel anything from him. It didn't feel like it wasn't compelling him enough. And he wanted it. He wanted to change it, but still. And this is what he's saying. You can get no feeling, no arousal, no excitement, no more connection to God. Like, I want to connect. You can learn a Maimon, and a second later say, I want to go get do something that I shouldn't do. Like, I haven't been changed at all. And why is it? It's because you're not thinking about it. Not just you're learning of, you have to think about it. You have to meditate on it. You have to say, what is it saying? And think about all those details and how does it apply to my situation and how could I internalize them? When the light illuminates inwardly. This is not the case when the light illuminates in his mind inwardly, unlike when you do it the right way. For then necessarily his heart also becomes excited, because then it has to be that your heart also get excited. To illustrate, regarding physical concerns, when a person ponders something fine or wondrous, his heart automatically craves it. When physicality, when you think about food, and you think about the details of the food, you suddenly you want the food. So too, if you think about godliness properly, you should want godliness. We'll skip the brackets for now. These, I don't know what type brackets they're called, but they're basically, it's not like, I don't want to lose the train of thought. So you go into simile, and end of that paragraph. Similarly, in the spiritual sphere, when the light radiates inwardly within the mind, through proper meditation, a person's heart automatically becomes excited with a ratzah, a will, as will be explained. You'll have that ratzah, that desire, that wanting to get closer to God. So too, just like we said in physical things that you think about it and you want it, so to spiritually think about the spiritual concepts of godliness and connected to God and doing avodah, so you'll want to go do that. Now we'll go back into the brackets. It says, although in the physical realm, emotional stimulation depends primarily upon the person's attachment, although physically it's about how much you attach to it, to the stimulus, and his own sense experience, as explained elsewhere, and also what we feel in this concept when you're thinking about the food, how it's all about us. This is because the natural emotions are not produced mainly by the intellect, but it's not really coming from the intellect. You're not intellectually analyzing why the food is tasty. It just has that good emotion that comes explained elsewhere. Therefore, it depends not so much upon meditation as upon attachment. It's more about the connecting to the thing, the food or whatever it is. However, to excite the godly soul's emotions, which are produced in general, specifically by intellect, as explained elsewhere, but this can't work with spiritual things. We'll explain. So both are necessary: comprehension and reflection and attachment. Meaning, when it comes to physicality, you just have to think about the food or whatever it is and connect. Also, intellectually, you have to meditate on it. Whereas godliness, it's you need to also have the meditation. You need to also have to have the words and the thoughts of, like learning the Chassidus. It doesn't work without the learning and really understanding the Chassidus. And it's simple because it's a spiritual idea. So it's not just something I've eaten, I've tasted, and it's much more refined, especially in the beginning. Once you've had it more, then it becomes maybe a little more like the food example. That's just what he's saying. Very interesting. So to have that same feeling that you have for food, you just have to think about it. You want it, and it excites you, and it makes you, if you're attached to it and you want it, so that you can have it with spirituality. Just you have to learn and meditate on what you learn. When the light illuminates peripherally, however, when the light illuminates only peripherally, no emotional excitement necessarily occurs. Unlike, so now going back to what I've done, do it right, so then you won't get any of this emotional excitement. If an emotional excitement is experienced, it is merely an empty and spurious illusion. So if you do feel anything, it's not even real. Consequently, no impression whatsoever is made afterwards. In actuality, turning from evil and performing good, meaning even if you do feel something, it's not real enough to actually make a concrete change, whether it's turning away from doing what you shouldn't do or doing what you should be doing. That won't happen, unfortunately. Likewise, no dominion over the natural emotions of animals, and also won't have control of animals to subdue them, is achieved through such reflection. Rather, their innate strength remains completely intact. They are as fossils before, and like we explained earlier in the later chapters, that you have to work on ourselves, that nothing will change from the Chassidus the person's learning, because they're not really meditating on it properly. In light of the above, we can understand why many members of Anash complain that although they study Chassidus prodigiously and pray, no positive change at all occurs in the natural emotions of the animal soul. They feel that animal souls are strong. It hasn't really changed at all. They feel, I've been in this Chassidic world for a while. I'm davening, I'm learning, I'm reading, I'm doing all the things I'm meant to be doing. But if I honest myself, I don't see I didn't change much. It's like when I was in Yeshiva years ago, not in my nuts in Marstown, some guy came, and I don't know why I said this exactly, but it's this idea. He goes, I thought we came to Yeshiva to change. So I guess it's more negative. I was like, to change, what are you talking about? I said, I haven't seen anyone change in this place. But unfortunately, we don't. Why? Because we're learning Chassidus properly. Maybe we're learning it and reading and translating it, but we didn't really meditate on it the way we should, like we've been discussing here. They retain their inborn strength, and on the contrary, they become even more forceful and becomes worse. The reason for this is explained above. Study and erudition alone cannot subdue the evil animal soul, because learning is not enough. It's not just that you have to learn the Chassidus. Let's learn Chassidus and something will change. It's not. You have to learn it, and you have to learn it well enough to understand it. And then when you understand it, you have to say, what does this mean to me? What am I meant to be doing with this information? How can I have my life differently? How can I change? How can I make my world better around me? Like, how can I work on my animal soul? What do I need to be working on, and what can I work on? But if you don't learn it properly, first you need to learn it properly. You have to understand it. But then you just need to sit there and say, what does that mean? Yeah. For study and tradition cannot subdue the evil animal soul unless the refinement comes from on high, unless God is nice enough to you to give it to you without you having to offer it. Through the Torah that one studies. Meaning, and really comes from your davening, from your learning, and Hashem might help you. Explained also. Only exalted souls, though they are refined as a matter of course by the study of Torah. That's really normally only like high souls that happens to them. But generally, it's not going to happen just by learning. But for the majority of souls, refinement can come about only through internal effort. That's why you see plenty of religious people, they're not the most well-behaved on a lot of levels. Why? Because they might have learned a lot, but it's not enough just to learn. Unless your neshama is high, then that will affect you. But just learning is not going to do anything. You have to work on yourself. And how do you work on yourself? Is through learning Chassidus and internalizing the Chassidus and thinking about the Chassidus. And what does this mean? And how do I practically express it in my life? What can I change? But for the majority of the souls, refinement can come about only through internal effort. When a person's meditation during prayer is merely superficial, so therefore, if you're going to come and start trying to meditate during davening, but it's only superficial meditation, but you don't really understand the mind, you don't understand what it means to you, it has no effect on the natural emotions. With the passage of time, therefore, they grow even stronger. So nothing really changes. So therefore, it's just going to get worse. Because naturally, it just gets worse. We get older, and we get more stuck in our ways, and we get more ability to get more involved in Gashmias. It's just going to get worse. And we're not working on ourselves, meaning that the natural tendencies to go up unless we work on it, and then we can pull it down. But it's naturally going up. All this occurs because the reflection during prayer is only in a general manner. And why? It's because when we daven and when we meditate, in general, when we meditate, and here meditating is meant to be doing davening. But let's say we're walking down the street and we're meditating all we've learned. If we that's already a good start. But he's saying, but if it's just a general matter, it's like, oh yes, I meditate. I'll tell you so quickly. This does not constitute avoid at all. So when I was years ago, when I came back from Yeshiva, I tried to be very involved. I wanted to make sure not lose anything. And so I learned to Maimon. And I used to go just to exercise, if I could run, and I would chaz the maimon. I knew it well, I'd learned it a million times, whatever, not chazer. But I didn't do it like this. I didn't understand it like this. No one explained to me this idea of chassidus. I just get over it. But it didn't change me at all. Nothing really meant. I just felt like, look how good I'm doing. I'm running, I'm saying chassidus, I'm refining the air. But it never changed me in any way. And the reason it didn't change me until recently, until I actually understood it, was because of this. It's not enough to learn a maimah. You have to read and translate, and it can explain to everybody that you know exactly what the maimah is saying, word for word. It's about what does it mean to me? What is Rebbe trying to explain over here? How my life meant to be different after I've learned this thing? What's the take-home message, so to speak? And this is what he's saying, that if you don't have this, people will learn Chassidus, and people do, and it's nice, but they're not getting anything from Chassidus because they're not doing it properly. It's not enough just to learn it. We have to internalize it. We have to say to ourselves, what does this mean? And and you think about it, and what's something I can take home? And it might be in the beginning, it might get confusing, you might not necessarily pick everything and the right things, but who cares? Start there. And take something, and a simple example is take something that you've learned before, that that you feel comfortable with, and learn it again, and ask yourself, what am I meant to be learning from this? What does Rebbe want for me to do differently? How should I live my life differently with this information? It could be looking at the world differently, that the world is not as scary or whatever it is. It could be I should work on myself to go to bed on time, or whatever it is, whatever you find. But that's what he's saying you need to be doing, and otherwise it's not going to really work. Summary: study and knowledge act only as a prelude to meditation, to meditation during prayer. Contemplation must be prolonged, must be intense. Only then will it have a tangible effect. And he's saying you have to take time, meaning you don't have to go slow, but you have to give yourself the time to think about it. You have to, you can't spend 5 seconds thinking about it and say, oh, it doesn't work. He's saying it takes time. And you work on it, and you have free moments. And when you're walking, for me, honestly, a lot of times I'm just spacing out, I'm doing dishes or something, I'm doing something else, and I'm thinking about it. And it's it comes to me. That's I'm not even, So whatever works for you. And we finished chapter 2. So tomorrow we'll go chapter 3. And we'll see if we get to finish it as well. Thank you very much for joining. Have a great day.